to say that sex is probably one of the most mismeasured things on the planet would in some ways be considered an understatement, but I think it's probably just like very, very accurate. I wouldn't call it an understatement, it's just very accurate because like people can sometimes say that sex is overrated, and at the same time there's other people that'll say that sex is underrated. But do we ever really rate sex properly? And can we accurately measure its impact? I don't know. Either way, that is something I do want to discuss on this episode. But before I can say anything, first of all, where are my manners? I should have started with an intro. Welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is Sir Denver B. This is a shorter, less edity, no instrumentally version of the podcast that I usually like to put out whenever I'm on break, just so that I can kind of keep things simple and light and not have to like put too much effort into making content, so that, I can have something stockpiled while I'm on break and, y'all can enjoy listening to me talk without an instrumental and shit. Either way, it is something that I used to refer to as Raw Zone, but, nowadays I just don't give it a name. And it happens whenever I am on quote-unquote break from the typical seasonal episodes that I will usually put out that are like full 20-something, almost 30-minute long episodes. And in this particular episode, I figured I might as well talk about sex. Not in the way that some people would expect me or would want me to, but in a bit of a different way. In a way where I signify its importance, not necessarily to everyone, but more so to men. And before I can do that, I kind of need to talk about where all of this came from. So I was on Reddit not too long ago and I stumbled across a particularly interesting post where a lady was busy asking about the importance of sex in men. Now, she had titled her post, Intimacy to Say the Least, and I'm going to read it, then, I can get into my thoughts on it. So it says, and I quote, "I've come across this for a bit and I'd like to know, especially from men, what makes sex so important to men, because honestly, you won't be banging every night. Some gems I've heard include: 1, I've never cheated because it's been readily available. 2, the more successful a man is, the more sex he wants. 3, it's a woman's responsibility to give it to a man. Why? Is it addiction? Or especially when a woman decides to go slow or not lead with sex early on? Personally, it's not a big deal, but I'd like to know. I'm probably going to write about it." End quote. Okay, now I know the largest bulk of that post is very, can I say, all over the place? But at least the underlying bit at the beginning was this person wanted to know why it is sex is so important to men, or what makes it so important to men. Now, considering that I am a man, at least, as far as age and stuff like initiation are concerned, I'd probably think that I would know the answer to the question, or answers to the question, because it's not one in particular. And there's quite a couple of reasons that are out there. There's some that are more easily known. There's others that aren't as easily known. And for me to kind of explain both ends, I kind of have to explain all of them and give sort of an explanation. So I will kick things off by talking about the more visible reasons for why it is men, put a bunch of importance on sex. And then I'll move on to the less visible ones. Now, just because I'm saying that they're more visible doesn't mean that they're easy to know. I'm just saying that the ones that you can easily see when, you listen to guys, or when you look at guys who go and bang a bunch of different babes. So the first reason that I can probably give is that it's today's idea of a final confirmation of you bagging the babe. Now, it is something that some people might probably question and be like, oh, no, that's not really the case. Or it's something that's been there since time immemorial. But when you look at it 20, 30 plus years ago, people back in the day, or at least guys back in the day, knew that they bagged a babe after they've gone for a couple of dates with the same person and they've expressed interest and they decide to start dating or start courting or just get into a relationship in general. So not unless if she's moving into your place with you, which now will probably include some level of sex, possibly, there's a pretty good chance that you'll know that you've bagged the babe without her starting to move stuff to your place. Now, that used to be back then. Nowadays, that's not really much of an indication. A babe can be going on multiple dates with multiple guys at the same time. She can say that she likes you, but up until she gives it up, there's a lot of guys that feel like all that she's doing is just talk. And there's a lot of women that claim that they want to be the certain guy, but between the times that they're meeting up with a guy, they won't have smashed the guy, but they might have smashed someone else. Which does kind of raise the question of, have you really bagged the babe? Is the babe really your babe if she's still giving it up while you guys are talking? So it does kind of raise that question, and y'all smashing is probably like the first confirmation of this babe who claims to like me has finally let me hit, so I have bagged the babe. Then the next reason is it is considered a win in the conquest, or should I say in chasing a babe. Like when you're chasing a babe, it is basically like the final boss that you have to beat. So you can chase a babe, she can express interest, she might seem interested in you, and y'all can do all manner of intimate things, but up until y'all actually bang, at least from a guy's perspective, you haven't like fully bagged the babe, or at least you haven't fully like won the entire chase. And this normally will occur when it comes to guys that are busy trying to chase a babe, not like they're trying to date them, they're just chasing a babe. So when, they express the interest and the babe seems interested, and these guys are chasing and chasing and chasing, up until she gives up the goods, dude is basically still chasing. And not unless if she says yes to it, then you're basically just not sure if you've actually won in this whole conquest that you started when it came to chasing this babe. The only true proof that, you finally won at the end of it, quote unquote, and, like I said, I'm just saying this from a typical guy's point of view, is when you smash. So, like, you might be chasing a babe for all this time, and then another guy goes ahead and bangs, and that's when you'll start hearing statements like, you warmed the water for another nigga to go and shower. So, like, when you hear statements like that, it is a clear sign that, yes, you went through the conquest, and yes, you were chasing, and yes, you were making headway, but another guy still hit. So, you guys having sex is a clear sign that you have won and you have beat the final boss. And the third reason, or at least the third most visible reason, is probably the simplest one, which I probably should have started with, which is, we're just horny. Like, dude has sexual desire. Like, as long as you are not asexual and, you are a grown-up and you have gone through adolescence, you are going to get horny at some point. You get horny at that point, then, you'll probably want to go and have sex. So sex is important in the sense that it will give you sexual satisfaction because you are horny. So essentially that's a reason. But now with that said, there are less visible reasons for why it is that sex is important for guys. And that now starts going into slightly deeper and possibly more abstract reasons for why it is that guys will usually want to have sex. And the first reason that I can probably give is that it is in some way, shape, or form a marker of social status. Not social status in that you are high class or low class or middle class or anything of that sort. It's more like you are, I don't want to say high value because that terminology has been butchered and absolutely slaughtered online, but it's probably the closest thing that I can give. Because guys that can basically sleep with, I'm going to say multiple women, not like too many women or every single woman, but guys that can sleep with multiple women by virtue of the fact that women basically have sex as a choice and they don't just give it to guys, just like that out of the blues, or so we normally know it, will basically be considered to be a better tier of man or a possibly better man because they can manage to convince multiple girls to sleep with them. And as such, they kind of see themselves and in some instances are seen to be higher tier guys. Now, of course, this is something that you will see amongst other guys, and you mostly see this in like large friend groups. So you'll find that, especially in large friend groups where it's just guys or mostly guys, you'll find that the two men that are usually the most respected in that entire squad are, one, the guy that has the money or the guy that makes the most money, and two, the guy that can pull the babes, or the guy that basically usually is connected with most of the women or talks to most of the women or is close with a bunch of different women. And more often than not, you find that those guys have smashed a couple of babes here and there. And the reason why those two people are revered in most guys' friend groups is because most guys tend to have an issue with picking up babes. So if you can find a guy that has it super easy and he can help you just by virtue of the fact that he can invite like one or two babes that can come with a group of their friends, making it easier for you, then he's automatically considered a more resourceful human being, at least in that particular group. So, yeah, it is definitely a reason over there. Then the other reason is validation. Now, it's, of course, like I said, there's that external validation that I mentioned earlier, but now there's the internal validation. Now, of course, there's a point at which you kind of have to move beyond this. And I know it's very superficial, even though someone is going to be like, oh, this is a wrong way to look at it. Oh, it's not good. It's very shallow. It's very vain, blah, blah. Well, when you look at how a lot of men are looked at or revered when it comes to the ability to pull multiple women, whether you're looking at the past 20-ish years, or you could even date it as far back as like the stories of Casanova, such men kind of got a validation because they were able to pull multiple women, and that was mainly external. So you take that through time, even though a guy isn't talking about all of the sexcapades he's had or the multiple women that he slept with, there's a certain increased sense of validation or increased confidence that comes whenever a guy knows that he can pull a bunch of different babes and he can bang them. Now, am I saying that it makes logical sense? No. But at the end of the day, it is something that does give quite the ego boost to quite a number of guys, just knowing that they can pull a bunch of babes and they can bang them. So, there's that. Then the third reason that is not visibly seen is that it's a form of emotional connection. Now, there's a statement that people will usually use online, and you could even say just out here in the streets, where they say that a woman needs emotional connection to sleep with a man, and a man needs to sleep with a woman to have emotional connection. Now, while I can debate the man's side for quite a while here and there, I can see where that kind of comes from. But even then, it doesn't necessarily have to create it, but it does actually strengthen the emotional connection that you can have with a partner. And it's something that is visible regardless of gender, and it's something that happens regardless of gender. And it is a pretty big reason why friends with benefits don't usually last very long. Because at some point, someone's going to catch feelings. Regardless of whether it's the babe, regardless of whether it's the guy, there's always going to be feelings caught. And usually that's because an emotional connection is initiated, or at least an emotional connection is sort of developed over time, which now will develop those feelings, and if not acted upon, it'll leave one side feeling like they're being shortchanged. So essentially it does develop that emotional connection. Then the last reason, but not the least, is it's a form of emotional satisfaction. And I usually talk about this on this podcast. It's not something that is openly voiced because I don't think it's something that is highly considered. But especially in this day and age where men do not find emotional satisfaction from all of the other places where they would probably find them. There's not as many young guys that are going to bars to watch football. There's not that many guys that are chilling with a group of friends after work. Most people nowadays are basically either working from home or going to the office, going back home, just chilling by themselves and nothing else. And when you lack that emotional satisfaction, it's very easy to find it in sex. And while I can't entirely prove this, what I can say for a fact is, if you ever look at the people that tend to suffer the most once a relationship ends, a lot of people would think that it's the woman, but some studies recently, or at least some information recently, actually does state that it is men that will struggle to get into another relationship. It is men that will struggle to recover from the relationship, and guys apparently take breakups way worse than women actually do. So if anything, that does show how important having, one sexual partner and developing that emotional connection, and how that can actually provide emotional satisfaction to a lot of men, if not men that are actually cuffed. And to kind of conclude all of this, all of these reasons listed down, it does show that sex is very important to all of us, but it is very, very important to men. And contrary to it not being considered a need, I'd say that we benefit exponentially more from having more of it than not having it at all. So maybe we should be having a little bit more sex. Although, then again, I might be wrong about this, just the same I could be wrong about a bunch of other things, so I'd like your thoughts on it. The DMs are open, the socials are in the description, and I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.